Hi, I'm Shannon, Seery, an economist with Wells Fargo, and I'm joined today by senior economist Tim Quinlan to discuss the consumer spending outlook, specifically in the context of personal savings. So Tim, perhaps you can just start off by defining excess savings and then level setting for us in terms of how much we believe is outstanding today on household balance sheets.
Sure, yeah. So we're kind of referring to the additional savings that households built up. Lower income households through socking away fiscal stimulus checks, and higher income households socked away through the money that wasn't being spent during the lockdown period. And whichever accounting you're using, the total surplus got to just north of $2 trillion, which is a huge pile of excess savings. And it's kind of powered consumer spending and contributed to the staying power of the consumer in this cycle. But we've been kind of chipping away at it. It's been kind of working its way back down. We're now down to about $500 billion or $500 billion in terms of that excess saving number. But, you know, as we point out, Shannon, even if we get to zero, it doesn't mean the end of consumer spending growth, does it?
Right, Tim. So when we think about excess savings, we're really focused on how savings has shifted or how consumers' behaviors has shifted after the pandemic compared to how they were saving prior to the pandemic. So we're really focused on that excess component. So even once savings gets back to a more normal level, households aren't out of runway in terms of their ability to spend. So consumers can continue to spend. It will just come with a deterioration in their financials. So it would likely mean a structurally lower personal savings rate. And this isn't that unusual in terms of this behavioral shift from households. So looking back over past recessions and the expansions that happen after those, you know, going back to the mid-70s, households have on average always saved less in the aftermath of a recession than they were prior to that recession taking place, notwithstanding the expansion after the 2009 recession. So this is a very usual structural shift that does happen or take place, but it does leave households more financially vulnerable to an economic shock or the next contraction when it does come in terms of economic activity. So Tim, with savings as an important consideration in terms of households' capacity to continue to spend, how are we factoring these dynamics into our outlook for the consumer more broadly?
Sure. Well, it starts off with a little bit of a stutter step. You've had, we already have first quarter numbers in the books, and consumer spending grew really fast, more than 4% at an annualized rate in the first quarter. Just the way some of the math works and some of the monthly volatility, that's going to slow to a crawl in the second quarter. We'll be doing well to get north of 1% in terms of the annualized growth rate in Q2. Further out, though, the way we tend to think about it is, the excess saving becomes a smaller driver of the capacity to spend, and access to consumer credit is also starting to dry up as banks' willingness to lend on the consumer credit side is kind of scaled back a little bit. And that leaves us with just income as the sole driver of it. Real disposable income was up for 9 months in a row before posting its first monthly contraction in April. So we're on a little bit of thin ice there. Our bet is that real income is no longer a major driver by the end of this year, and then we pivot into an outright slowdown in consumer spending in the first half of next year. But really, it all comes down to the outlook for employment and income.
Well, we'll continue to keep you all updated on how our outlook evolves, but thank you for tuning in to our latest Economic Insights video.